As you can see, our wonderful panelists are already on the stage. I want to kick off and introduce this panel with a statistic. Did you know that new studies have found that 96% of legal departments saw budget cuts or hiring freezes this last year at large companies? But guess what? Almost 83% of legal ops professionals reported budget increases. What does this mean? What should we take away? What should change? I'm not the one to tell you, but we have a wonderful panel to kick you off today. Please join me in welcoming our next panel on legal ops and legal tech.
All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Harvey Anderson. I've been honored to be the moderator today. We have a quick 30 minutes, so we're going to run through this pretty hard. And for our panelists, as I ask you questions, give me a quick, minute introduction so folks know who you are. And I'm Harvey. I was former CLO at HP, adjunct faculty at Berkeley now, a tech practitioner in the Valley for the past 25, 30 years. All right, David, let's start with you. What is legal operations? And is it a function? Is it a set of tools? Is it a mindset? What's your take?
So this will be easiest, yes, to all three of those things. So I'm Dave Curran. For those who don't know me, I currently run sustainability and ESG practice at Paul Weiss, but I've had a long career. I've been a CLO at several companies. I've been in-house at many, and I've also run several businesses, technology businesses. So I've seen the law from sort of all sides, including legal operations and costs. So just to expand a little bit on the answer is, and especially having come full circle to being on the service provider side again after 30 years of having been on the inside, it is, I think, starts with a mindset, Harvey. It's an approach. Some people would call it a philosophy. How do you look at the operations of law, compliance, risk management, these things that integrate with legal departments? How do you get the delivery of services? How do you provide the delivery of services to your in-house clients? How do you do that cost effectively using technology, smarter ways of doing business, partnerships and collaborations and the like? And so I think the 20,000-foot answer is it starts with a way of thinking. Then you have to design a program. It requires systems thinking and design thinking to understand how are you going to receive and deliver services in the most cost-effective and impactful way. And also, how do you reduce risk? At the end of the day, the job of lawyers in particular is not only to reduce risk, but to try and avoid the landmines and the trees falling before they do. So that's the 20,000-foot answer to kick it off.
Perfect, thank you. Hey, Aaron, from your perspective, what's the value proposition for legal ops?
Yeah, well, there's several value propositions, including maintaining your own sanity. I think that necessity is a mother of invention, and that's true in legal operations as well as anywhere else. I'm Aaron, by the way. I'm the general counsel of Yelp. I've been there about 14 and a half years. So have done legal operations from the very basics of getting in and trying to maintain my sanity with things like receiving subpoenas every day. What if we had a template where we could take from that and then tweak it for individual responses, but save a lot of time in the process. And we still today use that same template and manage everything internally. But in terms of the value prop, it's an evolution over time. Like you might start with something like that, like a document or something that you've spent some time, apart from actually dispensing the legal advice and doing the legal work, to think about how you can do that work more efficiently or more cost effective. And then as the company scales, you might hire people that focus on specific legal operations areas, whether it's contract management, document management and litigation, training materials for other teams. And then you might scale that with technology as well. And so it's very important to keep in mind the time you're saving, the money you're saving, and because you can get bombarded, especially with technology, with all manner of solicitations for things that say they're going to help you, making sure that you're really focusing on the needs of your particular business.
Thank you. Morgan, to you. I got a bunch more questions now, and you touched on something too, Aaron. But Morgan, first, what do you think what have been your biggest successes, and where have been the biggest challenges?
Yeah, so good morning, everyone. I'm Morgan, the general counsel of Instacart, and I think like Aaron, was part of our company's journey from like true chaos and a moment in time when you would ask, where is this contract? And various people were just filing them in their desks. And there was no central repository, and you'd have questions, and you'd spend a day running around the office like a chicken without your head trying to find like just a very simple thing like, where is this document? And we've obviously grew tremendously during the pandemic, and now we're a legal team of north of 65. And so I've seen and experienced legal operations as core to that growth and that ability to grow. So I think one of the things where we've had tremendous success is bringing in processes that are around revenue generation and scaling our ability to get money in the door. And I think that that's always a huge differentiator for a legal team if you can actually be viewed as a partner that brings money in the door versus, and risk mitigation is certainly part of the job too, but I think everyone wants to be more than just that as an in-house lawyer. So we worked with Salesforce, we worked with Tonkean, which is the solution we've used, which helps with workflow automation. And that's a huge, at least for us, we found that a huge efficiency in sort of just making sure very basic things like how do you handle subpoenas, how do you handle contract review requests, and there's a normalization of how that works. And it's not this like, ad hoc process each and every time. In terms of challenges, we've found that, a lot of times when you use legal ops software and legal ops tools, unless you have somebody who is really thinking about this as maybe their day job, and I don't know if it's exactly a legal operations manager, a lot of the utility of those applications and those processes don't get fully unlocked. You sort of use the base case, and then you don't even realize that it has these additional features and functionalities, and they never get leveraged, and that's, sort of wasted spend and ultimately wasted hours and wasted time. So making sure that we get the most out of what we're using in terms of legal tech and legal ops, that's, I would say, an ongoing area of opportunity.
That's a really great point you brought up, which leads to sort of the talent question. And at times, I found you start with these solutions, and then you realize you don't actually have the talent in your teams to effectuate them or to take it to the next level. You might be able to like automate repeatable known processes, but you can't do much more. So we've played with hiring process engineers. We've played with bringing designers into the teams, recognizing that a lot of lawyers don't have that capability. And David, you talked a lot about systems engineering, and that I love the term you brought up. Maybe you could talk about.
Yeah, and I would say, I would just have one nuance to what you just said, Harvey. It's, I'd say the talent is often there. And we've talked about this, Anjali, at Berkeley and other law schools. Law schools are not tapping into it and helping train it. I mean, these are the best and the brightest that go to law school by definition, right? They're the best in their class in high school. They get the highest SAT scores. They get the best scores in college. They get the best LSAT scores. And then they wind up going to law school, and the law schools don't teach that, or it's certainly not required at law schools. And so I was at Campbell Soup Company, and one of the things that I learned about engineering from engineers was critical control point analysis. And so when I ran food recalls for the company, and which is a serious business, so you have to know when an ingredient was introduced into a product line for potential contamination. And I said, we could do that for our legal department. We could identify when this thing happened, reverse out of it, and figure out what are the component parts. And so I think that when I say systems thinking, I think lawyers are capable of it. I just think the training makes us linear in how we react to things. It's a reactive profession. And so the more you can say, where did this thing start? So this is a contract. There are hundreds of contracts like this, or this is a litigation, it's a breach of contract. Whatever it is, taking it back to its source and trying to lay out the process for when things could go right and could go wrong helps you think about what kind of talent you need, as well as supplementing with people who are not lawyers, engineers, as you mentioned, Harvey. So that's the other thing. It's just being really open to everything and attached to nothing is my philosophy. I'll meet with finance, engineers, anybody, coders, to learn about these roots of these things. And then I think lawyers are smart enough to assimilate that and understand it, to figure out how it would be usable going forward.
You talked about this concept when we were doing our prep of a legal engineer. And I thought that was really thoughtful. I mean, that title, just like we have privacy engineers, right? That kind of like developed as this hybrid role of folks that were /lawyers /engineers that really filled this gap, right? Between, quote, the law and then the product itself. And when you said a legal engineer, I thought of someone that had sort of business process, workflow skills, that understood, some parts of the law to like as a talent box that I'd love to have. And I'm just curious, Aaron, as you run your teams, that's a really nice thing to have, to think I can get this extra head count to do that, because you're all like struggling on head count, where you don't think that's the first place I'm going to put my head count. I would put it on revenue, right, first, most likely, because I get bigger impact, which is why you started there, I assume. Like, how do you build that in, or have you had any successes or challenges or painful learning experiences, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think from the beginning, it's also been helpful not just to think about your own team, but a lot of the things you're doing, you have to work cross-functionally. Like if you're working with contracts, there's other teams touching those contracts. If you're looking at software, they have to be bought in. They want to be able to use that software. And so one thing you can do is, deputize people across the company with certain skill sets to like get really buy-in and also understand the processes as well as the technology that you're looking at getting. And then you're not really talking about expanding your headcount, you're kind of borrowing time from other teams who are going to be using and invested in the process anyway, so it's in their interest. And then we've seen the benefits of this across the board, because then you also get people that get a closer understanding of legal work and they can evangelize what you're doing to the rest of their team, and I found that to be very helpful. And there's clear places where that synergy exists. As I mentioned, the contract systems. If you have billing systems, clearly your finance team is going to want to be part of that to help manage accruals as well as payments. So it's been pretty successful doing that. And then internally in the team, we do have a combination paralegal, legal ops person. We run a very small team, so the person wears both hats. And that was kind of a natural evolution. I mean, originally the lawyers, they start doing legal ops work, as part of their day-to-day work, and when that becomes too much, you hire a paralegal to somewhat help out with that, and then you might evolve to getting a dedicated person and maybe even someone with a higher skill set as time goes on.
This is a question for all of you. How much do you think culture, what's the role of culture in this sort of innovation ops piece? And the premise behind this all is that my experience with lawyers, and as a lawyer, we've not particularly been, loving to suck up the technology and do something new. We like to build bespoke things every time. You give us a problem, we'll solve it. And that's where we want to stay and live, right, in our specialty. And this is not particularly our specialty. And I saw culture really affect how much people adopted new technologies, or even just were willing to think of their work as being a business process. I mean, let's be honest. We are part of a business process, or we run them or design them. So how do you guys? What have you found around culture? Well, start with you, Morgan. Yeah.
Sure. I think that goes to the heart of whether or not legal operations and your ability to scale as a legal team is going to be successful or not, is having a mindset that is open and curious to like rolling up your sleeves and learning about some stuff that is kind of technical and kind of dry and sort of more of the substance of an engineer. I think that there's a generational issue that is true. I think a lot of lawyers, when I graduated from law school in 2000, they went like the humanities route. They were econ majors and they were English majors, and there was always, people would say, well, I'm a lawyer, I'm not good at math. And so I think we, especially because more senior people tend to be on the older end of the spectrum, I think we sell ourselves short and we put ourselves in a box in terms of not being forward thinking on this. And I think, to David's point and maybe the conversations you had with Anjali, we have to realize that the lawyers that are graduating now and that are in law school, I mean, they took coding in high school. They may have taken coding in junior high school or elementary school. So what we assume is true about the skill set of lawyers today I don't think is necessarily, I think we would do our earlier career colleagues a disservice by thinking that they can't pick up those skills and actually leverage all the stuff that they've learned in high school and college to solve legal problems. I think we haven't exactly put them up to that. We had a paralegal, but she wanted to learn SQL. And so that was a really important skill for us as a legal team in order to query databases, to understand potential damages and all of that. And we just asked our engineering team to have a brown bag lunch series for folks. And a handful of attorneys and paralegals raised their hand and said, I want to learn how to do this. And they were able to teach themselves a new skill. And with that skill, they've been hugely effective in terms of getting stuff done. So.
Yeah, I'd add on a couple of points to what Morgan and Aaron have said. The culture is of embracing change and allowing people to expand. I find that if you expose people to things and you reward them by allowing that path, they will learn and they will get encouraged. I think part of the challenge is the bilateral nature, and I see this at a law firm. After all these years of being inside companies, the going back into a law firm is fascinating to see from this vantage point. The ability to encourage not just your in-house folks, but your outside folks to explore and to understand more about your business. Because at the end of the day, I think people who are in the legal community, whether they're lawyers or not, are naturally curious people. The humanities, I'm a history major, knew nothing about coding. I did one course in it. But I've been fascinated by the business aspects and the ability to encourage that in people and to know that when I say reward, I mean don't reprimand, that it is actually part of their day job to be learning and exploring these things. And I think the other part that Morgan made that is probably not played as well, not only to get over this hump of being a cost center. I used to do a report when I was in-house called the Tree That Didn't Fall report because I was so frustrated with being called the cost center. And the costs avoided by lawyers are enormous for many companies, especially on the reputational risk side of things. So the ability to learn how to sell that, you're selling your services and you're selling your value proposition. So Anjali's numbers about cutting it, to me, in this world, that's insane. To be cutting legal department costs makes no sense to me at this stage. The risks are growing exponentially for companies. And so the ability to say, no, you can't cut, you need to grow, and here's what our value proposition is, and this is why legal operations matters to this, because you're going to be the pivot for these things, I think is really compelling especially for non-legal audiences. People, finance, you have to be friends with finance in your organization because they're the ones who hold the purse strings. And if they don't understand what you do, and I think it's like a simultaneous translation exercise. It's demystifying what lawyers do. A lot of people don't know what you do and the value you add. If you sit down with them over a coffee and explain it, they go, oh, I didn't know you guys did that. That's what you do? Oh, you do that 100 times a day? I didn't realize that. So, I mean, it's a lot of basic human communications.
You mentioned change management at the beginning, right there, and that's been my experience as well. And having to invest in that, really invest in teaching our teams like what that looks like. But the corollary to that is I found that we had to make failure okay.
Yeah.
It really and reward attempts to try to do something new. So failure not like bad failure, but like, hey, I tried to do this other thing, and really go out of our way to literally reward that and say, hey, they tried to do this, here's what happened, blah, 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 blah. Do brown bags around that. Has anyone tried that, or have you found that to be an issue? Well, as in people are afraid to fail, so they don't want to try something new and mess it up.
I don't know so much that it's afraid of failure that I've seen so much as like concern that it's just not going to work. It's just not going to get it right in the first instance, and it's going to take too much time to run the iteration. So I found that, like, again, like as you discussed, like platforming ways to do it and opportunities for success and showing people like the trial and error that you get there has been really great. Like we have a member of our team who's been great at experimenting with our instance of our LLM that we use. And he's been using that to answer security questionnaires, like create bespoke NDAs, et cetera. And so we had our version of a brown bag where he showed the rest of the team how to do it, and lawyers can be very conservative and want to be in an ivory tower reading up case law on the rule of perpetuities or whatever they want to focus on and not thinking about these things. So actually seeing someone using this in their day-to-day work was really helpful. So people could get their own ideas of, well, you know, I also have some repetitive tasks that take a lot of time that this could also be helpful for. And you know, that attorney that originated this kind of work and did this, he actually broke the LLM while doing it and got in touch with the engineers and actually helped the engineering team triage what was going wrong with it, which they were very appreciative. So it was really this kind of cross-functional examination of what the process was doing and how to improve it along the way, and really opening the eyes to other members of the team along the way.
Okay, thank you. Pivoting on something you talked about before on the LLM model, how has AI affected how you structure your teams, if at all, so far?
It hasn't changed how we've structured our team at this point, but I absolutely do think that generative AI and use of AI and large language models more broadly is absolutely going to transform the legal profession. I think it is not a question of if, it is a question of when. Our CEO is on the board of OpenAI, so we, you know, the push to lean into AI is very profound at Instacart, and it's something that we're doing. You know, Aaron, we had our legal team at Instacart, not surprisingly, we have food puns. And when our teams get together, they're called jams. So we had a jam in New York earlier this year, and the entire focus of it was on AI. And what I had asked is for our privacy team to lean into this AI solution that we use, which is a sort of a walled garden version of ChatGPT-4, so that our inputs don't get into the larger model. And they created a privacy chatbot that takes, I mean, we forget about how much time is consumed by in-house lawyers answering very fundamental questions. And even if it's put up in wikis and other things, no one looks at them. And so finding a way to like get people engaged with the information in a way that they want to consume it was really what we were trying to solve. And a lot of people on my team were sort of like, oh, what's this AI stuff? And then when they saw a demonstration, they're like, you really saw the scales fall from their eyes, and people were like, wow, this could be really great for me too.
Yeah, getting them away from the drudgery
Yes.
that they don't realize that they're steeped in often is part of it. It's like, oh, I'm doing that, I don't have to do this anymore? Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the other thing that where I'm really looking to see where the technology takes us is particularly in contract drafting. I mean, my background is in commercial law, and I mean, I probably have drafted 10,000 termination provisions over the course of my life, and if I don't draft a 10,000 and first one, I'm perfectly fine. I mean, there's not, to be careful, but there's not a lot of like creative magic there. And so I think if there's, I think Thomson Reuters has a product called CoCounsel out there. There's a lot of companies that are pushing out new drafting tools, and that's one that I'm really watching with a lot of interest.
Yeah, and I think one of the misconceptions, I worked at Thomson, so one of the misconceptions is that generative AI is like everything's brand new.
Yeah.
I mean, I think back on my career on what I used to do when I was a litigator at a law firm, and then when I was in-house versus what they're doing now today, led by a lot of legal ops folks. Probably 60% of the work that I used to do by hand, so to speak, is gone. It's been automated already without using one of the more advanced tools. And I agree with you. Now it's going to go up exponentially because, so if you think about the products that Thomson and these other companies have, I mean, it's automating things. Contract lifecycle management tools been around for 20 years. So it's not new. I think what's new is the lawyers actually becoming the quarterbacks of those things. Historically, they were, like you said, they would dump. I was talking to a Microsoft guy, and they said something like 90% of Word's features people don't use. Just Word. Lawyers don't use 90% of all the functionality. Because I don't know what the array of things are. We just upgraded ours. So I'm like, I didn't even know we could do that in Word. So it's predicting the present is a phrase that a friend of mine used. It's like, what do you have as an inventory now? What are you not leveraging? So from a cost standpoint, Aaron, you know, like when they're trying to come after you and cut costs, are you leveraging the investments you've already made? And then it's not a plug for outside counsel, but this isn't just exclusively in-house. So we've been approached by a lot of clients who just don't have the capacity in-house to do things. And they traditionally thinking law firms would be a very expensive alternative to do on an hourly basis, which is true. But if the law firm is doing these things too, using automation, using AI, you're now able to meet, and I think you're going to see more and more of that. It's going to be forced on law firms. We're doing that for our clients. So it's like that. You have to use all the partners wherever you are, all your collaborators, to leverage it the most, because you're just not getting another $10 million in a budget.
Well, certainly the European firms have really been I would say,
Absolutely.
at the lead on.
London starts these things.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases.
To the point about the AI in your teams, has it affected how you think about talent and hiring? I.e., are you looking, actually including as a capability, any past experience, any indicator in their background, like, oh, this person is going to be better at pulling and using this technology yet? So question for all of you.
That's a really great question, because I think it really is going to call into question like the amount of experience somebody needs, particularly if they're going to work at a company. And then from like the company client side, I mean, we do look to firms as the training grounds for future lawyers. Like, what is it that we are sort of asking law firms to do, and how does that sort of billing client relationship all work? Because I think we are going to want lawyers who are quarterbacks, so they already know how these things, contracts, deals are supposed to work, and then the AI is just an implementer of that, and so that they can be more efficient and more quick, but they still have to have the fundamental skills on how to use it and how to prompt it and all of that, and all of those things that are going to make someone successful with using AI tools. That I don't have an answer for that, but it's like you can imagine an easier task teaching someone who really knows how to do a particular task to do it with AI than to teach somebody who's like great at AI, but then how to do that particular task. I don't think it works quite the same in reverse. And so I think that will be something that we all have to keep an eye on as sort of the next crop of lawyers start to develop.
Yeah, I think the reverse is also true. As you're recruiting candidates, you will want to sell them on what your capabilities are in AI technology. They might want to know what systems you are using. And so it's helpful if you're interviewing people to say, hey, every attorney has their own dedicated first-year associate. Well, not really. It's our instance of ChatGPT, but you can use it as your first-year associate, and that's how you should be thinking about it. And you can kind of gauge from the reaction you get from your candidate, like how they think about that and whether that's something they're going to have an affinity towards.
That's a great point, Aaron. And at this point, we've got just a couple minutes left, and I think we're going to close with maybe each of you kind of taking 1 minute. What's the one thing you want folks in this audience to take away from this conversation, whether we said it or didn't say it? Close on it. And start with you. You got a minute. 45 seconds. 40 seconds.
30 seconds. I would be, I'll come back to, I'd be open to everything and attached to nothing, especially if you're younger in your career, earlier in your career. I've had 6 careers, and in your generation, you're going to have 10. What you're doing today, either at a law firm or inside, is going to be completely different in 7 years and 10 years. And I would be open and adaptable to that, and I would be just voracious in learning, and learning beyond the confines of law. I learned a ton from LinkedIn. There's so much valuable content out there. And people say, well, how did you get to do what you're doing? I was like, I spent a lot of time late at night reading things and talking with experts. And I think that's the best for the design approach, is just know what you're in to understand. It's like being on a subway ride in a city and you don't know where your destination is. It's a very nice ride, but you need to understand the map. And I would get to know the map more.
Thank you. Morgan.
Yes, I guess I come to all of you with a dire warning. If you do not focus on legal ops and building your team, you are building on a weak foundation. I think that it is, a lot of times in-house lawyers, general counsels, they focus on the relationships with the board, with the CEO, and they sort of assume that the team will, from a infrastructure perspective, run itself. And I think that that's not the right allocation of time. I think you need to spend at least as much time making sure that your team and your folks have the right infrastructure so that they'll be able to scale, because otherwise you're just going to trip yourself up over time. So it is something that's worth really paying attention to.
And I'd say, it's the role of everybody on the legal team to spend some time thinking about it and thinking about their work from an operational perspective and how they think it can be improved. And there should be open communication lines around that. It should be cross-functional. You should be bringing in other team members that might have a vested interest in what you're doing. And it's never too early or too late to start thinking about it and working on it and to just keep that momentum going.
Thank you. And I think I would close with, one, I think you're doing legal operations whether you think you're doing it or not. It's happening. Is it happening great, or is it just barely happening, kind of like Morgan suggested? And then two, I think every lawyer kind of needs to be a bit of a systems thinker and recognize that they're in a process, or they're managing a process, or that they're designing a process. Like, you just might be the product manager for this process. That is a part of your job, whether you realize it or not. Even though you might also be the craftsman, you're also running a process. So with that, I think we can close. Thank you, you guys.
Thank you, Harvey.
Thank you.